You want anime because that's how you get anime.
Exactly.
Pacific winds plus radiation. But, so, with that, it sounds like a perfect place to start the actual interview.
Sounds good to me.
The way I'll do this is I'm just going to try and get you talking and see where we go. The idea of this interview is not really to talk about what you do, because the best way for people to see that is to go to your channel, which naturally. I find personally quite interesting. I definitely have enjoyed watching your videos over the, I don't know, maybe 8 months that I've been aware of your channel.
Thanks, man.
And you are clearly somebody that's been with War Thunder for a while, and I like your perspective.
Thanks. I really appreciate that.
You're welcome. You earned it. Starting off, you were born, and then things happened.
Yes.
Tell me about that.
Well, I was basically born... well, here's the thing, right? My parents, they come from a migrant background, so my parents didn't migrate from their supposed motherland or whatever you want to call it. My grandparents did. My grandparents came from Malta, and they landed... Well, both sets are Maltese. They landed in 64, and I can't remember the other year. I think it was like 67 or something like that. And essentially, my grandparents came with about $50 or $200 in today's money. And that's what they had to live off until they found a job. Like my grandparents on my mum's side, for example, they lived in a what's called a humpy, which is basically like a beach shack, like a tin beach shack, for a few months, I think it was, before they moved into a caravan. And then eventually they saved up enough to get into a house. So my grandparents have always come from a very sort of, not quite poor, but not a very wealthy background, but they have a really strong work ethic, right? So my parents, well, my parents actually met because my dad had to move down the coast for work. So they were all, well, my dad was originally from Sydney. So they moved down to the Illawarra, which is like 2 hours down. And that's where he met my mother. That's where I was born. And then 2 years later, or a year and a half later, Mum and Dad, well, Dad managed to get a job in the city in Sydney. And so we moved up there. And that's where I spent most of my childhood, in the, not quite the poorest part, but the working class, the lower middle class type area. It's a really nice spot, like if you find the right areas. But there are some really bad spots quite close. And it's quite interesting because the very first night that my parents moved up to Sydney, they looked out the window at about 1 o'clock in the morning and they saw this guy who was drunk as all hell, butt naked, with a paper bag in his hand, with an alcohol bottle, or God knows what, screaming and yelling on the other side of the road. And my parents thought, this is a great place to raise a child. I was like,
welcome to the neighborhood.
1.5 or like 1 year and 3 months or something like that. Just starting to walk. My parents were like, yeah, this is going to be interesting. Like most of my childhood was spent in sort of the western area of Sydney, and it's really nice. Obviously, it's not the most privileged upbringing. It's neither the least privileged upbringing, but it's somewhere in the middle, and I kind of like that. You know, I went to a decent school, and now, again, because of university, I've moved up the coast away from everyone. So again, like it doesn't really matter to my family where we are. It's more, you know, that we're doing something that's good and productive. And for me, like, I'll tie this back into YouTube, but I find that YouTube is really good and productive for me, just simply because I can, you know, take a mental step back from, you know, the day to day. I can use this to relax. I can do it while playing games, which is exactly what I like to do. And it's sort of a win-win for everyone. I get to, you know, interact with people in the community. I get to, you know, maybe inform someone, make someone laugh. That's one of the things I'm not a terribly, I don't bounce back very well from tough times. I'm learning. I'm still learning. Still starting to do that. But one of the things that I found was helpful, especially going through school and my final year of school, which is when I started watching The Orange Doom, for those of you who know him. But like some of those videos got me through, my final exams. At the time, I had a girlfriend in high school, and we broke up just about as we graduated. And so, that wasn't easy. And again, YouTube, like watching other people laugh and have fun on YouTube just, helped. And it was nice. And I thought, you know what, if someone can do that, then surely I can do that for someone. Even if it's just a small meme video that's 2 minutes long, or, a stream highlight video, or, something memey, or a commentary. And that's basically what I've found myself doing. Is just thinking, you know what, if someone laughs at this, then it's all worth it. If someone, takes it and goes, you know what, you changed my day, or you turned it around, or, you made it better, then, that's a massive win for me. And that's all that I need from this.
Well, you know what? I think that's exactly the effect that you're having. So you can feel confident in that. And you also seem like someone who wants to be about the business of getting things done. Does keeping busy on YouTube and putting out material also give you a sense that you are making progress in your life in general?
To be honest, most of my family don't really care about my stuff with YouTube, and for me,
welcome to the club.
For me, a lot of life is based around my family. I live with my cousin. My cousin and I, we both live together. We both play games, and we both muck around, do stuff. It's good fun, but it's a lot of it is very family orientated, and to see my parents especially just not really giving a shit. It does hurt a little bit, but I'm going off on a tangent, but it doesn't really hold myself to a sort of standard. It's more, if I get a good gameplay video, I more hold myself to a quality standard rather than a quantity standard. I'd rather, put out one video a week that is, a superb, an ace game, something really interesting happens, then put out a video every day and I just get a lousy 2 or 3 kills and nothing special happens, or they're both bomber kills, or something, not very exciting that people won't enjoy as much. And for me, it's more the quality, and I would much rather be someone of quality than of quantity. I get this all the time with my parents. They're terrible when it comes to purchasing computers. They've purchased something like 6 or 7 laptops over the 10, 15 years that laptops have been a thing in my family. And none of them have really gone well because they bought the cheapest one and it's died in about 2 or 3 years. And I've always said, in some cases, quantity just does not suffice. It just does not bring in the goods necessary to make people satisfied. And so in this case especially, I would rather, take my time. I'd rather, not push myself to finish something and make sure that it is done at an acceptable standard for me. I do this a lot. I hold myself sometimes to an extremely high standard, sometimes very, very unreachable. And it does tend to, stress me out a little bit. But one of the things that it ensures that I do is that I always put out something of quality. And that for me is very, very important. That's highly important.
A few things that you mentioned talking about your family and how your parents don't really understand, how to get a good quality computer or why it's necessary to get one of a certain quality. And I just kind of imagined in my head that they don't really know what all the specs stand for either.
Well, I think my dad's fairly literate when it comes to computers. Like he sort of understands. I don't think he's ever built one, but I know for a fact that a friend of ours has helped him. I think they added extra RAM to our old family computer, and they added like an extra hard drive, I think, back in the day. Obviously, it's all changed and evolved in the last 10 years. You get, like, everything is radically different in terms of, maybe plugs and cables and, different things that you need. But the thing is, like, I just don't think that they see any worth in it. Because my parents are very... My family ran a business for 10 years. And it was very hectic. We often spent the time between Christmas and New Year's with, sanding floors and redoing the varnish on wooden floors. And that took 3 days for the 5 of us. And it was tough. But, like...
That is hard work.
It's frustrating work, and it makes you really hungry as well. I just remember being extremely hungry all of those 3 days.
That's what happens when you work hard all day.
Naturally.
Your body tells you to just cram in the calories.
Eat more, yeah. But
so how did it feel? Sorry to interrupt you, but how did it feel at the end of that first day of refinishing hardwood floors, where your body is just like, okay, we can do this. You just need to feed us everything.
The first day was always the most grueling one. So we're always like, Dad gave us a block and some sandpaper or like it's like a broom, but you put the sandpaper on the bottom, and like that was grueling. Once we got through lunch, like Mum would normally cook something really nice and bring it with us, like a. Have you ever had like a pasta bake?
Yeah, tell me about
it.
that.
It's like a pasta bake, but it's almost like spaghetti, like pasta, like penne, and then it's in almost like a meatball, like not a meatball sauce, but like a bolognese, but it's baked instead of like you cook the sauce and then you cook the pasta and then you put them together. It's sort of baked, and then it's got like sometimes a bit of cheese on top or something, but. It's done like that, except with rice, and that's a traditional Maltese thing. And it's like Mum would bring that sometimes, or we'd go grab some hamburgers from a local like takeaway store, and that would be the saving grace for us every time. After that first day, like we felt really relaxed. Like you have no idea. It's sort of like stepping out of a hellfire and finally into the spa, so to speak. It's quite a relief. The second day and the third day were a bit more relaxed because it was more like finishing up things, moving stuff around, and then Dad would get out the varnish mop and he would start the varnishing. He wouldn't let us touch it because I don't know. I wouldn't trust 14-year-old me either.
Well, those chemicals are nasty too. They're very carcinogenic, so he was taking one for the team there.
Potentially. I mean, I think Mum did it as well. Like, but most of the time, especially when we were older, sometimes we ended up staying home on those other 2 days, just because all there was to do was the varnish, and that was it. But yeah. Apart from that, it was pretty straightforward. Like, Mum and Dad were very hardworking, and like they still are. And that rubs off onto me a little bit. I try and work hard, but if you hit a motivational roadblock, then there's not much you can do. Or if you are stuck at something, then there's not much you can do.
And also, you work in a creative field, and one of the major differences between a labor field, which is, I loved the story of you working together with your family there. Just seeing the way that your mom supported you and Dad worked together with you, and getting the impression that he was leading you guys and putting real trust in you guys. That's a really heartwarming story, because not a whole lot of families actually work that well together.
To be honest, I think it's just out of necessity. Like, mum and dad needed the manpower, and so we're the only suitable options. And so, you know, what we have to do is, you know, pull our weight, I suppose, because dad worked a full-time job, mum ran the business, and it was tough because no one ever had any time. And so us as kids were seen as needing to pull our weight, to, you know, not I guess let the family down, if for lack of a better phrase. But it was interesting. It was an interesting 10 years.
Do you miss those days of working with dad and having mom drop in and bring you lunch?
Mum would actually sand with us, and so would my little sister. But like, essentially, like, there was no real. I don't like saying it, but like, you know, the traditional role of the mother being the cook and the dad being the labourer, blah 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 blah. It sort of doesn't work with my family. Everyone does a bit of everything.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the trick is, everyone's an all-rounder. Everyone needs to be an all-rounder for the sake of everyone. Because, you know, what if someone's sick? Then there's no one to clean the house. Or if someone's sick, there's no one to cook.
Well, you know, moms don't get sick, but carry on.
It's us blokes that get caught with the man flu, get struck down, near-death experiences. It's terrible.
And mom's just secretly dying, but she's got things she needs to do.
When it comes to my family, everyone tries to be as stoic as possible. Like, my grandparents grew up in Malta, which was a war zone at the time. Like, my grandmother was, like, two of my grandparents were born in 1944. One was born in the 1930s and lost his father in 1942 to a bomb.
Mm.
I can actually go and stand in the place where the bomb fell. I can also see the marks on the walls of the sandstone blocks where that bomb, the marks of the bomb, basically, or the shrapnel blast.
Wow.
But yeah, everyone was very, very stoic. No one really, you know, takes time for anything. Everyone just keeps going on because that's what you used to have to do. And now we're in a situation where, you know, we're living in the West. We've got enough money. We've got sort of enough, you know, resources. We have a universal healthcare system here. So, you know, if we get sick, it's not the end of the world. You know, if we can't work, it's not really the end of the world. But we still do it anyway because, you know, that's just how you forward yourself in life. That's just how you get better. And that's one of the things that I do a lot of. I really push myself and put a high level of like a high bar to meet. So if I don't get a quality video, that for me is that high bar. If I die without a kill in War Thunder, then for me that's missing that bar because I know very well that I can get an ace game if I just didn't do that stupid thing, or, you know, didn't push a head on in a Spitfire against the Dornier 335. But you know, there are some things that for me especially, I put a high bar on myself just so I can make sure I constantly meet those, to me, standards. And you know, perhaps set an example for the community. Someone might see, hey, this guy doesn't push head-ons. Maybe I should try that. Or, you know, I saw in this video this guy, you know, doing a really cool reversal. Maybe I can give that a try. And eventually, they'll start off really bad at it, like I did. And then they'll get really good at it with practice. And that, for me, is why I set that high bar. Because it's good for me. It means short-term satisfaction. I get a nice 5-kill game. And, pardon me, long-term satisfaction. So someone else is able to take something from that moment and perhaps learn with it. And that, for me, is really important.
That's interesting. That sort of mentality is something that I've noticed a lot in Olympians that I've looked into, and other people who are competitive athletes. And I suppose that's also something you see a lot in the business world as well. And along with that, people who regard their productivity the way you've been talking about, they tend to be pretty hard on themselves sometimes. Is there something that you have you learned to relax, to unwind, and what do you do to unwind?
Well, about putting a high standard on myself, yes, that's without a doubt, that's the case. Like, for example, I used to do this. I used to say, well, you know what, if that girl didn't, she said, no, I don't want another date. You know what, that's a fault on my half. That's the standard I put on myself, and I don't do that anymore. But that was pretty detrimental. Like that didn't go down well with myself. Like, it's a terrible way to think about things.
Well, especially with women, situations. You have to give them the license to be fickle because you gotta let them decide to do what they want to do. But
of course,
yeah,
they're just another person. But when you put it in a competitive sense, like situation, for me, that is in my mind. Obviously, it doesn't pan out that way in real life. But in my head, for the heat of the moment, it's like a competitive thing. I've got to go out and get that thing. But realistically, it's a two-way street because at the same time, she's gonna have to say the same thing about me or something similar. And obviously, if it's not meant to be, it's not meant to be. And that stuff happens. And that's something that in my mind at the time, I didn't really, I didn't really factor in. And either that was out of naivety or, just a general misunderstanding. But what was the second half of the question again?
What do you do to unwind, to let off some of that pressure?
Essentially, gaming is one of my unwinds. One of the things that I just do. If that's not going well, so for example, if I'm playing plenty of games and I'm just not getting anywhere, then I either try. Depends on what I'm feeling. Most of the time, I'll just get up and go for a bit. Maybe I'll make myself some food. I tend to get hangry. For some reason, if I'm really, really hungry and I don't notice it because I'm too busy, I guess, being competitive, I tend to just not see me being hungry. And that'll just have flow-on effects. And I'll just get more and more frustrated. And eventually, I'll just go, you know what? I'm too hungry for this. So I'll either make myself some food or I'll go and get some food. And then that'll be a bit of a reset. It's essentially just sort of what you got to do is look at your biological needs. Food, your sleep. Maybe you need some fresh air. So if you feel like, I don't know, maybe you're feeling a bit stuffy and you're a bit angry, open up a window, go for a walk. Maybe mow the lawn or wash the car or something like that. Do some IRL stuff. If you can't, maybe go to bed. Maybe you're tired.
That is really interesting that you should mention that. As soon as you started mentioning being hangry and then in the midst of your competitiveness, you just lose sight of your body's needs, which is completely appropriate for somebody that's in the middle of competition. You want to push your body and to learn to do that. And I immediately thought of my 2-year-old daughter because she is her great-grandmother's daughter. She's very much like great-grandma. Yeah. And great-grandma basically built the house that I'm living in because she was just constantly working. And she's a tiny woman. She's almost a midget. She's just teeny. Yeah. And she did construction work for years on top of being a mother and taking care of her 4 boys.
That's amazing.
And just there's everything in this house is the product of her just being constantly working. And at the same time, she's always looking out for the needs of other people.
Mhm.
And I see this in my little girl where she can't sit and do nothing. Like she'll relax for a little bit, and then something strikes and she's got a project that she's doing, and suddenly stuff will be everywhere because she's working. And she'll just start doing a nothing cry where she starts whining about everything but not stopping working. And I'm like, you're hungry. And I'll be like, you want some food? And she's like, no, because she doesn't want to stop working, right? And she doesn't even know she's hungry. So I've got to bring something that she would love to eat anyway, even if she wasn't hungry. And then she realizes she's hungry and she just starts eating everything. It's hilarious. But that thing that's in your personality, to where you focus on your work or what you're trying to do, and your body's needs just fall away.
Yeah.
And then you've got to stop because you don't have someone to stop you and just be like, eat, you're hangry.
Yeah.
You've got to stop yourself and go, okay, it's break time. It's time to check on my body and see what needs to happen, because I'm not going to do well if I don't take care of myself for a while. That's that's good advice.
Exactly. Well, if you look at a child, they've almost always got their parent or their caregiver of some sort to, stop them if they're going over the top, if they're, throwing a tantrum, and they just need to be shown, hey, look, you're hungry, eat something, you'll feel better. And
stop them. Yeah, good. Good. Yeah. That's a nice thing to imagine.
As an adult, you have to do that for yourself, and you have to be mindful of what you do when you're in that state. Because there are plenty of times where I've, I don't know a person who hasn't been salty in a game chat before. I don't know anyone who hasn't. And it's just one of the things you do when you're competitive. And you got to look out that you, especially if you are a public figure like myself. I hate saying that. I absolutely hate saying that. But lo and behold, here I am. You've got to really, especially when you get angry, watch what you say. And if you're like in real life, this pans out the same way. If you talking to your girlfriend or your wife or your mother or your whoever, then you've got to be mindful of what you say, because that could lead to some unfavorable consequences.
I like how all those examples were ladies. Carry on.
Yeah. Well, even there's a certain level of respect that you, for me personally, that I'd afford to a girlfriend or someone like that. I'd give a lot more respect to my mother than I would my father, because my father is sort of like he's a lot more stern. Like my mother, everyone treats their mother with especially like sons. They treat their mother with a certain unique level of respect, same as they do for their girlfriends or their wives or their sisters. Although, to be honest, when it actually comes to real life, I think I treat my brother and my sister almost exactly the same, and it's quite hilarious because we're all very similar, But basically, the thing is, you look at a person, you see what they mean to you, and you essentially make sure that you treat them with the level of respect that that you would want back, essentially, or that they give back to you. And I think that's the best position to have on.
That makes sense. And in the midst of that, you mentioned that you have a sister and a brother. So yes. Are you in a family of 3 children?
3 children, 2 parents. I'm the eldest, naturally, the trailblazer, and for me, that's actually quite difficult, because there's a lot expected of you, particularly from my family. And one of the things that they're not satisfied with is the fact that I play games. Aside from YouTube and all that, it does get tough. Like there's a lot put on you, and because they don't care, it's not easy. It's definitely not easy.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that, because you are definitely not alone in that. My mom especially, she'll watch TV, but just the thought of playing games on the computer anything more than just as a little quirky temporary pastime once or twice a year just does not compute to sit down and do nothing. But she'll never understand. But at some point, you just gotta realize that everybody values things differently. And if you can look at what you're doing and especially hear from other people that you've been impacting their life for the positive, as a creative person, that's something that hardworking parents might not be able to relate to until later on in life.
Naturally. I once talked to the Orange Doom as well, again to bring him up, but that Orange had a pretty profound impact on my life, especially becoming a moderator, and most of my online friends I have from that. It's pretty big, but anyway. He essentially came from the same background as me when it comes to parents and their attitude towards doing content creation. And, literally exactly the same. Like when I hit 10,000 subscribers, I was like, hey, Mum, I have 10K subs. And she's like, what does that get you? Any money or something like that? Which is the typical mentality of my family.
That sounds so familiar. Keep going.
It really is, isn't it? Like I definitely don't think I'm alone here. I think there are so many people here that are maybe they're trying to get a YouTube channel off the ground, and their parents are just like, nope, you are not allowed to spend more than. My parents did this to me until I was about 16. They're like, nope, you're not allowed to spend more than half an hour on the computer every week. And that's all I had. I remember playing RuneScape, and all my mates were like level 70. Combat, and I was level 30 because I only got half an hour a week, and every night they'd go home and they'd play. It was frustrating for me, but it's one of the things you've just got to persevere through. Like I know with Tim, he managed to end up streaming every day. His parents managed to give him the time, like the 3 hours every day, and he was making enough money to sort of get by. Which was, it's impressive of itself, but the fact that he's managed to do it with that roadblock of his parents being there, that gives me a bit of courage. And I think, if they're not going to enjoy it, then I know people who will as well. I know plenty of people who will actually watch what I do, people who will enjoy what I do, people who may change their time in War Thunder, it may change their time in their adolescence, and it might help them through a tough time like it did for me. And for me, even though YouTube at the moment is just a hobby, if that were to turn into a career, that would be remarkable. That would be amazing. Just to have that impact on people, because in the field that I'm studying at university, the people are your main focus. I'm working in, for the record, I'm studying medical imaging, basically. So, essentially, the person is everything in that situation, and the patient is key, is paramount, and that's how that translates into YouTube as well. And that, for me, that's really big. That's massive, and that's really important.
Well, I'm glad that you mentioned that. So it seems like you're saying that you have a desire, and you've flat out said it, that you want to reach people, you want to improve their lives, you want to give them something to go on, let them know that they're not alone, which is a really important thing, especially when you set out on your own in life, away from your family, and suddenly you don't even know who you are anymore.
Well, I don't find making friends very easy. It's not an easy endeavor, and you meet a lot of duds on the way, like a lot of nasty people, for example. And it's really, for me, just someone who's never really gone out and socialized. I've never been a terribly social person, but for me, it's always been difficult to, weed through all the garbage, all the rubbish to find that one flower, so to speak. It's frustrating for me, perhaps. And one of the things that's, I guess helped me cope, helped me sort of adjust is being online and just, having people that I know on Discord or, Facebook even. It's just good having people around that I can, turn to if I'm feeling like I'm struggling.
That is a good point. And that reminds me a lot of things that really matter with what I've been doing with my own smaller presence online as well. So I was gonna ask, and again, I'm just having a hard time focusing my thoughts into words tonight. That's pretty rare for me, actually.
Yeah,
I think it's because I missed a lot of sleep last night.
Yes, the joys of having a 2-year-old, I assume.
Well, I went and played. I'm gonna guess that you know what Dungeons and Dragons is.
I've never played it myself, but most of my mates play. Funny enough, the reason why I can't join them is because I'm 250 kilometers up the coast, which is a shame.
Sounds like you'll have to have a Discord gaming night.
Actually, that's not a bad idea.
There is a Table Gamers room on my Discord server, and it has attracted some very colorful and active people, so you might consider just talking about table games with people. You'd be interested who's into some interesting games. Anyway, I've completely lost. Oh, right! Yes, my train of thought. I found it. So, you have indicated that you really get a sense of worth and accomplishment, and your real goal seems to be to improve the lives of other people. This is kind of a gimme question just to get you talking, but
yeah,
why? Why is it important to you? What's the value in improving the lives of the people that you come in contact with?
Well, one of the things that I personally find, right, is if you improve the life of just someone in the street, I know what it's like to feel like shit. I know what I've been through all that, and I don't want to go through it again. And I wouldn't want anyone else to go through it because it's just rubbish. It's not fun, it's pretty bad. So if I can either help someone through that or help someone never have to face that ever again, that even if it's just by me, opening up Audacity, opening up, Sony Vegas, and just slapping together a quick video, then, that makes it all worth it. But it's like, if you improve the life of just someone nearby you, and you do it again and again and again, and then they do it once or twice, then you have a whole neighborhood of people that's either acting in good faith, or they're, much better off, or they're happy. And overall, you end up lifting the mood of people around you. And what that does is that rolls back to you. It's almost like good karma, if you want to put it that way. You do something good, and it will actually eventually come back to you. So the more good that you do, the more good that will come to you because of that. And I think one of the things that YouTube has definitely done is it's given me a lot of people that, appreciate my work. And that's one of the things that I, in day to day working with my family, I didn't really get because it was kind of expected of me. But now some people are like, hey, I love your videos, or I love your content, keep it up, man. And that's refreshing. It's nice. It's, it's something nice that's coming back to me. And that's awesome to me. And, the more you can spread, I guess, in general, positivity and just being nice and just being, having a laugh, being lighthearted, I guess, and just generally finding the better things in life, you tend to move away. If you're a negative person, you'll always tend to be surrounded by negative things. But if you're a positive person, you'll always tend to be surrounded by positive things. And the more you can, help someone become positive, even if it's by simply making a YouTube video, then your whole life becomes way more positive. And you can see that on my live streams. In fact, like a lot of people, even though they're, maybe they don't feel that great about War Thunder, or they don't feel that great about a certain game that I might be playing, they still have some, everyone's nice, everyone's like a little bit funny, everyone's a little bit quirky, and everyone just has a nice, like, good time overall. And it's just really, really nice to see that, one, I can do that to people. Like that's really cool if you think about that. Like, if you think, hey, I can actually make someone smile, I can actually make someone happy, that is a big plus for especially me. But if you can, in general, just lift the mood of people, you will eventually get that back 100%, and probably tenfold, because what that'll do is you'll get flow-on effects again. You'll make one person happy, or so you make 10 people happy. Those 10 people will go and make 10 other people happy, and then eventually you'll get 10 people, coming back to you, or 100 people coming back to you, and that's all worth it for me.
I really love the way you started that off by saying, I remember what it feels like to feel like crap.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't want to feel like that again. And other people have felt that way. And just, it's so interesting to me that, I mean, this is human nature. It's
naturally,
it's pretty self-evident. And yet, just considering that remembering your own struggles is one of the main things that makes you want to help out other people. That is gratitude being expressed by you carrying on what other people have done for you to comfort people and raise their spirits.
Naturally, yeah.
That gives you a sense of joy and accomplishment. I love it. All right, where do I go from here? Well, I guess I've picked up a little bit about your childhood and growing up, a little bit about school and university. Drop some hints that you've been rejected by certain ladies at certain times.
Only
not
a few.
Specific about
only a few. Like, most of them absolutely love it. I'm kidding, of course. Well, not really, but
tell me about the love life spit.
I haven't had a girlfriend for like 4 years. Mainly because I've moved up here, and I don't get a lot of time to go out, to be honest. I haven't really met anyone that I particularly click with as well as I thought I would. It's just a matter of waiting, I suppose. It's not a terribly good game, but it'll go somewhere, I think.
Well, I was like, 23?
Yeah.
I think 23 before I met my wife. Or she didn't know that she was my wife yet, but I actually dreamed that we were going to get married before I met her. But that's I talked about that on my own channel. Anyway, what was I saying? Right, so I was like 23 before I even knew that my first girlfriend existed. That was my first girlfriend. So until then, all I did was get shot down like the 2 times that I tried before. So it is really one of those things that it definitely pays to take the long view. And if I could throw in some of my advice, never let your short-term goals or feelings or how you feel about yourself, never let that affect the way that you look for a wife or a girlfriend, boyfriend, depending upon who you are and what you're into. You really want to go for the long term on that one, because it definitely pays off in a huge way if you make that.
If you're looking at spending essentially the rest of your life with someone, it's got to be someone who you're gonna still be attracted to in 50 years' time. Like my grandparents, they're childhood sweethearts. It's very funny. I've actually been to the 2 houses that they grew up in Malta. They're literally down the road from each other, like on the way into the town. And essentially, they used to like share food with each other, and they used to chat with each other on the way to school. And they only went to school to 3rd grade, essentially, because they were quite poor. But, you know, in the long run, they ended up getting married. They moved here. Yeah, it's pretty, like, it's pretty incredible how, you know, sometimes it could just come along, and other times, you know, maybe you need to be set up like my parents were. But it's just all in a matter of time, I think. You know, there's no point rushing it, because you're just gonna get well, it's not going to be good for you in the long run. It's definitely not going to be good if you run into it and just go, oh yeah, she'll do, and then that's it. That's not how it works. That's definitely not how it works. You got to be a bit more careful. You got to be a bit more, you know. It's a different game compared to going out there and getting something. You have to sort of. It's almost like fishing, where you have to wait for something to strike, and then once you strike, then you can go for it. But it's again, you've got to be careful, because you can't. Obviously, you can't strike too hard, or you can't play with it too hard, or. I meant
context.
Yes.
You'll go blind. Anyway, keep going.
But essentially, if you muck around, like if you don't message her, if you play the so-called waiting game, and you take like the classic 2 days, was it 2? I think it's the 2 days to message her back or something like that, and then she just gets bored and pisses off, then that's your fault. You're done.
Nah, just be honest. Just be honest.
It is literally easiest just to be yourself. Like, if you're interested, then you're interested. If you're not, then just don't. It's not worth it. In the long run, at least, it's not worth it.
There you go. You know, I'm a few years older than you. I'm assuming I'm, 33 now? And I have the same advice. So, sounds like you got the right idea. All right, I guess we can move on from that now that we've had a good laugh. What are your dreams, and what are your plans for the future, looking ahead?
Honestly, for me, it's just sort of see what I can make of this. Like, I don't know. I haven't really set myself a massive long-term goal. I just want my own house for a start. I guess in the long run, I'd like a family. I definitely like someone to settle down with, that's for sure. But I'd just like to be a regular person, to be honest. As weird as it sounds, you know, just a job, a house. I'd like to go to a couple places. I'd love to go to Tankfest, and I would love to go to Flying Legends as well, which is the I can't remember where it is. RAF Cosford, I think, which is in the UK. I'd love to go and see those things. I'd love to go and, you know, I guess I would just love to see some of the air museums. I'd love to go to Kubinka eventually, and see the mouse, see the ridiculous Soviet designs. Like, there's so much beauty about the things that people have engineered over the years. Like, if you look at the way the Panthers were constructed, for example, and the German tanks in general, each creator, each like mechanic, each welder, everyone saw the finished product as a work of art, and everything had to be done beautifully and perfect, and that manifested on the battlefield. So, for example, the Soviets, they just slapped stuff together, and it turns out if you just hit a T-34 with a high explosive or a T-50 with a high explosive shell from a long 88, it just exploded because all the welds came apart. Whereas a Panther would never do that because it's a work of art to them. And just to see these marvels of engineering, like, I love the story of, for example, the Merkava, because the British were like, yeah, we're going to give you some chieftains. Maybe not. And they pulled them away. And I think they decided to do some stuff with Palestine instead. But Israel was like, you know what? Screw you. Screw the US. We don't need to bother with you know, this stuff. Like, we're not going to buy any stuff off you. We're not going to buy stuff off the Russians. We're not going to buy anything off anyone. We're going to make it ourselves. And they did. And I think that's amazing. Like I respect that so much. They're like, you know what? I'm gonna not rely on anyone. I'm gonna do it myself because no one else is gonna do it for me. And you know what? Now we have four like distinct marks of the Merkava. It's incredible. Like it's really such an interesting story, and
it's a distinct vehicle at the same time. You know, you'd think that a tank would just start looking the same amongst everyone, and yet, even with the sort of standardization of certain things, they're still distinct and unique, and just I'll admit it, they look beautiful, don't they?
Oh, they're I love the outside is just nice, sleek. I absolutely love the T-80U and how it is modeled in War Thunder. Like if you look at it in War Thunder with its current armor, I'm in my hangar at the moment. I just have to have a look at this beauty. It looks from the front like a samurai, because it's got the rubber flaps on the side, and it looks beautiful. Like it is such a badass machine from the front. And the way it's used, you know, the carousel, the autoloader, like that is awesome. Imagine being the first one to like think about that and make that. Imagine being able to pioneer it so that it has a reload rate of 6.5 seconds per shell without having to touch a single shell.
And a tiny low profile, which is one of those things that sort of flies under the radar.
It's like all that in a tank that is a few meters tall. That's impressive. Like I want to go and see these things. Maybe not necessarily the T-80U and the stuff that's out now. But you know, the stuff of the past was made under the same mindset.
Yeah.
And it's really, really cool to see stuff like, you know, I'd love to see the Heinkel 162. I'd love to see, you know, these beautiful Spitfires flying in formation. I still remember seeing the video of the 16 Spitfires flying over in formation, and it's just gorgeous. The P-51, you hear the supercharger whirl. It's like nothing else you've ever heard, you know. And the ME-262, I think they've actually managed to get a flying version. I'm not sure. I don't think it has the 004s, because who would put Yumo 004s in anything these days? Because they're rubbish. They're like of course they're like essentially the first production jet engine, or the first jet engine used in a fighter aircraft ever. But you know, they're so bad.
Well, the story of those is interesting because they knew they didn't have the materials to make a proper jet engine. So they made a jet engine that would fail in a predictable way. And that just goes to show the ingenuity of the people that were working on these projects is really something that, apart from politics or anything like that, can be respected and even admired.
Oh yeah, I have a deep admiration for most, like anyone who can do something that incredible in a wartime situation. That deserves so much respect, regardless of, you know, political affiliation or anything like that. It's like you look at the raw engine or you look at the raw design and you think someone actually put the time in to design it to fail at around the 24-hour mark. I think it was 24 hours. But yeah, that's beautiful, man. That's so clever. And like things like that just really interests me. And that's why I like aircraft, and that's why I like tanks and whatnot. Actually, funny story. The very first, the guy who actually got me into playing War Thunder taught me how to fly radio controlled planes. I've got a couple of them in the lounge room. Like I need to fix them up and get them flying again. But I've got a G2 Stuka, you know, the one with the cannons, and I believe it's the one that's based off the D5. But they've removed the cannon, the 20 mils, and they've just given it the tank busting 37 BKs. And I also have a naval trainer that the US used called the T-28 Trojan. It's like a 1944, 1945, like slightly post-war trainer aircraft, and it's like both of them fly like a dream. But this guy who taught me how to fly them, he was like, "Hey, you should try this flying game. It's called War Thunder." Like the thing he sold me on was, he was in his Blenheim and he was going off to bomb a base or a target, or something like that. And he said, if you miss your bombs, you have to go back to base. Like, there's no rearming in midair or anything like that. And I was like, holy shit, that's so cool. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to give it a try. And here I am, 4,500 hours later.
I love that a bomber gameplay got you into War Thunder. That's really saying something.
But I think everyone gets into War Thunder for the bombers. I used to love playing the B-17. I thought it was the most majestic thing in the whole game. Now I think that mantle goes to either one of the P-51s or the MiG-19. For now. MiG-19 is my baby, and most people know that. I haven't flown it in a while, but I managed to get the Ace Crew somehow. But, yeah.
Sorry.
Like, unexpected things. It's one of those things. Worth it the whole time, though. Worth every second.
Man, the nostalgia, just hearing about how you got into War Thunder, I was thinking about how I got into it. Oh, and since we're on the topic, it doesn't really have anything to do with the interview, but there's a guy called Colonel Paul Do Not Even Try Gamma, and he is making a video with different people asking them about how they got into War Thunder. So if you want, I could give you his info.
Yeah, that'd be cool. Yeah, for sure.
Because he's supposed to be working on a compilation. I would just love to see different people talking about specifically how they got into the game, because it really makes me nostalgic to hear people talk about how they got into it.
Yes.
After investing so much into it, and I know you've invested a huge amount of your life into the game, it's just neat seeing the family grow.
Yeah.
It is neat hearing people's stories of their time in War Thunder. Anyway, that's off
just
topic.
Another quick one off topic as well. There's a guy that I know who was making he's making a compilation video on how people got their gamer tags, which is really cool. It's Precut Ziploc, for those of you who don't know. He's an old jet god, but a really nice guy, like genuinely lovely guy. Anyway, yeah, we'll carry on, I think. It's enough off topic.
Well, that is just about it for today. We're starting to run out of time. I gotta go relieve my wife and do dad stuff. That's one of the reasons why I can't dedicate like serious blocks of time to to anything for more than a few minutes at a time.
Well, when
that's something you'll recognize when you have kids.
Eventually, you might find yourself getting a little bit of time when they go to, if you're going to put them in daycare or preschool, or if they go to school. Maybe you'll be a bit occupied with number two if you end up doing that. But like from what I've seen, like I've got a lot of family friends with younger kids. I've seen what my parents have sort of gone through in retrospect, and obviously you learn from others. You don't get a lot of time with kids. They're very very big investment, but at the end of the day, it's sort of an investment in yourself, and it's probably, from what I can see, one of the most fulfilling things that you can do as a human being.
Oh yeah. It's also the only way you can get an actual one-up in real life. You make little copies of yourself and you train them up to be better than you. And I think that's what really makes it generally worth it for other people. If you're not just in love with people in general, which is my dirty secret, is that I actually love everybody, and I secretly adopt like all of the children that I get close to, and I'm not allowed to like tell anybody because that would be weird. Why would you do that? But I've been calling you Spit the whole time, and I can't believe I did this. It must be because I'm exhausted or something and brain drained. What's your name, Spit? What do we call you?
As in my real name? Yeah, sure.
If you feel like sharing that. I'm Casey, by the way. Toshi is not my actual name. That's my net handle. I'm Casey. Nice to meet you.
Well, I'm Sam. You can call me whatever you want. You can call me dumb cunt if you want. But honestly, I'll respond to just about anything.
Sam is a great name, derived from the Hebrew Shmuel.
Indeed.
Samuel, a very strong man in the book that follows his name in the Bible.
Mm-hmm.
And I also have a friend named Sam that I was playing D&D with, and my D&D video is already out, so I'll be talking about Sam.
Lovely.
Hopefully people won't get the two of you confused. Because that video is confusing enough already. Well, Sam, it really has been a pleasure. I'm really glad that we were able to connect, and it means a lot to me that you took the time to spend roughly an hour with me. And, well, I guess I'll be seeing you around. Go ahead and sign off for the folks back home.
You know, it was a pleasure. It was really a pleasure. It's nice. It's nice to just be able to chat about something. You know, a lot of people don't really get to sort of see the so-called man behind the mask. So it sounds really dumb, but a lot of people, you know, they put you up on this pedestal. It's like you're a god or something, but not really. I'm just an ordinary bloke, you know, just trying to make my way through life, and this is one of the ways I'm doing it. And so, yeah, thank you for the opportunity. I really appreciate it, man. It's been a pleasure, and I'll catch you next time.
This has been Spitflyer, or Sam, if you will, now that I've finally figured out his name. And a little bit of a look at who he is as a person. Definitely feel free to check out his YouTube channel of the same name, Spitflyer. And he's one of those people that's been playing War Thunder for a long time. And he's also someone that's very useful to look into for understanding how things work in the skies of War Thunder. I guess that's it for today. Catch you guys in the next video. I'm really looking forward to making the next interview. So, if you know someone that hasn't been asked if they'd like an interview, just let me know. And also, what's the polite way to contact them? I tend to just barge into people's Discord servers and start asking questions. Alright, bye-bye.